Well, then I will introduce you. So this is my client Hans in Hans's beautiful new apartment that I might be more excited about than they are. All right. So Hans, I am reading back to you some things either you have said direct quotes or sort of summaries I've made, and please let me know how any of this feels. So one of the things was that you came in knowing you wanted to create a consistent relationship with your money. And you had this sense that that was important to you even before. And one of the things you said one week after, I don't have the dates of when this was, that I feel way more clear on everything. And I notice these moments through the week when I go grocery shopping and I feel tense, even though that's literally in my plan and I'm getting what I needed. And when I remember that, it feels good. You have called the money grip process a very grounding ritual. One time you said, I feel like I'm building trust in myself. You've mentioned a lot of things about impulse buying, so I am curious how that feels for you lately, especially after we just went through Black Friday and you had a lot of thoughts about that. You also said that you wanted padding. And then what I see is just your general openness to money. You've talked a lot about that you now are this hub of money conversations out that you're radiating out in the world. And then, of course, the really fun wins is that you have paid off your credit card, you have created savings, you have a plan for how to keep your relationship to savings growing. Okay. So is there anything, I have some more questions, direct questions for you, but how does all that feel to hear? Does it feel true?
Yeah, it does feel true. And I remember all that. And I think that it's actually true. Like a lot of those things are still actively alive for me, that I recognize the ways that I'm building trust with myself. And I recognize the ways that I am continuing to work with an intention towards having clarity and discerning between the needs and the wants. But I actually also think in my narrative is like, I came in because I am trying to save up for a van. And I had this idea that I'm trying to save like $20,000 for a van and to build it out. And that's why I actually reached out to you. And that it's been one of those things where I reached out with that specific thing. And now the van, it's like, I think I'll spend like $6,000 and maybe, somewhere around there. And I might have help from my parents or something like that. So the initial goal has actually shifted and changed. I'm gonna mute that. Has actually shifted and changed so much, but that I've found all this, and that this actually continues to be a really, really important container for me with you of creating, like keeping that sense of collaboration, which I know is important to me. And, you're like a mentor. That mentor relationship is really important to keep me on track and to keep me like grounded and inspired in the and those reflections where I'm like, totally, I don't always remember all those things, but I remember the first time in the grocery store that I was like, you gave me this language of tightness. And I was like, oh, I feel tight right now. And I was like, I don't need to feel tight right now because I know I have, 50 something dollars left in my budget for the month. And I'm not going to spend that. And it's not towards the end of the month. So I'm okay. And I felt in my body, myself relax because I had the clarity. So definitely
And also, I just love your awareness of the process that you that it's clear to you that you are in a journey that is going to be changing for your whole life. Can you just say a little bit about, please, what your relationship to savings was before we worked together and how it's feeling now?
Yeah. Before we worked together, there had only been one time in my life that I had been able to save up probably more than $1,000. And that was when I was getting ready for top surgery, and I was saving so that I would have at least a couple of months of recovery time was the goal. And I've always done gig work. So it's always been seasonal or gig work, and there's never been a consistent income. And so I think I saved like $6,000 in that time. And that was like the most that I'd ever been able to save up. And I didn't, and that felt like a huge big deal. And that again with the fan, I didn't know how to save up more than that. It didn't feel possible. I've always had this relationship of, I feel like when I have money, it runs through my fingertips. So the idea of savings made me feel really defeated, I think. And that's where it's like, even recently, right? It's easy to go back into that with the idea of the impulse buying and Black Friday around that kind of stuff and things like that. It's like, it's very easy to get into that feeling of, oh, it's just running through my fingertips. Where is it all going? And I feel like we're worked so hard to get this thing up and then it's gone. But that I feel that's still there. That's still alive for me. I still am like, it's not even possible to save up that more than $6,000. That's the most I've ever saved up. I can't imagine saving up more than that. You know, I'd like to have like, it even feels big to say like, I'd like to have 20 grand in my savings account or more maybe at some point. That feels like a huge number, but I'd like to have that kind of backing. I'd like to work towards being able to save bigger chunks of money, and it feels more possible, but it's still what you're saying about process. I know it's a process and it still feels like a process.
Yes.
Yeah. Like having this space to come back to, you know, like I've said this to you, like money coach, but I also sometimes think of you as my money therapist, where it's like, it's this space to examine that and be in the process and have the reflections and realize that, you know, that there's gonna be another meeting, or there's gonna be another point where we can touch base and things can shift, and I might be missing pieces that you can offer or things like that, you know, I trust the process. I trust that, you know, like things can shift, because things have shifted so much.
Yeah. And it sort of sounds like part of what you're saying is that there has been in your life a feeling like there wasn't anyone to do money with you, that like now you're less alone than before. Yeah. Is that part of it?
I think that's a big part. That's why I love to talk about money, because especially where I'm like, oh, it's possible to talk about money with transparency and openness, and to not allow the tightness or like just like this sort of like feeling of like I should be discreet or something to take over, but that actually it's felt really healing to me to be able to talk openly. And I don't feel like that's something that's exemplified by parents to an extent, or society or school. Yeah, like I've never really been able to. You're the first person that I've met that's like excitedly like, let's talk about money, you know. And that's been really easy to roll with, because it's like, yeah, why not? And it's really fun to be able to do that for other people too, to boop boop boop.
Yes, passing it along. Yeah, totally. All right, so will you say a little bit about your debt?
Yeah. What debt? Yeah. And I actually feel like I have a relationship now. I was thinking recently where, you know, I realized I've been feeling into this, you know, I had this realization that I haven't mentioned to you yet, but where I thought, okay, you know, I want to do these trips. I want to travel, but I just paid off my credit card debt from years, which it was mostly because I had used my credit card to pay for a root canal years ago. And I just haven't had the kind of freedom or money or openness to, I'm like, why would I prioritize that when I have other expenses and I only ever have so much in my account at one time? And so I paid off my credit card debt. And then I realized I have $2,000 plus accessible to me in credit. And I know that I'm capable of paying it off if I need to. So I don't have to worry about, will I be able to make these trips? I can use my credit card if I need to, and then pay it off the way that I did. And that's what it's for too, and to an extent, where it's just this sort of like, I have other options. And that helped me relax into like, oh, okay, you know, like I don't need to freak out about, am I going to be able to do the things that I want to do, because I do have options, and I do, and I will be able to work with that. And I know my tools a little bit better. And I think that that's a really big deal, having paid off my credit card debt and also my student loans at this point, the applying thing for the loan forgiveness, but that, you know, I'm basically out of debt, which, yeah, it's still like settling in, but I feel pretty celebratory about that. And that I'm actually, the clarity is like, and I'm not opposed to going back aware, like with an awareness, going back into debt at points if I need to, knowing that that's not just like a crushing weight,
Yeah.
but it's something that I can choose and work with.
That's beautiful, because there is a what is it called? A personal finance mindset, which is debt is always bad. It never can help you. And then there's the way business people work is how can I leverage what I have to create opportunities, to create choices. And I just want to call you out because you said you understand your tools a little bit more in terms of having options and then making responsible and realistic decisions of how you use those options. I want to call you out because I think you understand the tools a whole lot as opposed to just a little bit more. So just throwing that at you. Okay, is there anything else you want to say about working with me?
Yeah, I think that I was actually this is a thread from an earlier conversation this morning and in general, where I've been really reflecting in the last couple of days on, my undergrad thesis was on the role of games in learning and play and education and learning. And I think that specifically part of what has like drawn me back to you continuously is that there is so much space for being playful and creative and gamifying the space, which is just, it doesn't matter that it was my thesis, it was, but like that's come up a couple of times in like these ways where I'm like, okay, there's an issue here, there's something that's hard and challenging, how can we gamify it in order to keep it motivating and fun and possible and light in a sense, or like that I think that that's one of the things that I value about working with you, is that you are practical. You keep us on track when I get a little, like sometimes we go a little far in this direction and then we come back, but that there's really a sense of relationship and there's really a sense of play, and you're paying attention and your notes are amazing and it's so thorough and you're offering a lot more than just the practical pieces, but there's like a sense of relationship and a sense of valuing me in my process and being genuinely excited and here for that. And that actually makes a really big difference when it comes to working with you. It's like, there's care and relationship there, and that keeps me drawn in too, and that keeps me grounded in the process, and so does the playfulness that you're able to bring with your like your all the other things that you also bring playfulness to, that there's so much more than just this is like only one of the things that you do. And I think that comes through in a way that's like, actually it's not just a job for you, it's like this is what you're meant to, you're doing, you're like following your calling, you're doing your thing, and that makes a really big difference to work with you.
You're making me want to
stop. Wow, you're a chair that allows you to spin all the way around.
No, I'm on my feet. I couldn't sit down for all this. This is amazing. I was like, don't spin yet, Olivia. Don't spin yet. Well, golly gee, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I'm going to stop recording.